Hey guys, I am your boring buddy. This is the place where history is so peacefully boring, even your stress peacefully clocks out early. Tonight, we dive into a story so quietly epic, your eyes might close before the king even appears. Perfect for knocking you out before the plot even starts. I pour my heart into creating every video for you. Your subscription is the fuel that keeps me going. Get cozy. The boring adventure begins.
You think the ocean is cold? Try sitting next to a man who's been dead for decades, but hasn't had the decency to lie down. 40 days on the Atlantic can break a ship. 40 minutes with him breaks a soul. We were sailing to the edge of the world, but we quickly realized the true edge was standing right beside us. The air tasted of salt, iron, and the absolute certainty that we had made a terrible mistake. The new world promised gold and glory. Vlad promised a perfectly organized terror. The man didn't just walk. He seemed to absorb the light around him, casting shadows that moved before he did. This wasn't exile. This was a pilgrimage guided by a creature that defied God and physics. I honestly thought the notebook was a Halloween prop some overenthusiastic neighbor had misplaced. Its cracked leather cover, the faint metallic smell, the way it seemed to hum in the dark. But the moment I opened it, the candle beside me flickered violently like it was trying to warn me. The pages weren't yellowed. They were bruised, scratched, as if whoever wrote in it had hands shaking so hard the ink trembled with fear. That was unsettling enough. But then the old chair in the corner creaked by itself. Not a friendly, cozy creak. More like the sound an old man makes when he sits up from his coffin. I told myself, relax, it's an abandoned cabin, everything creaks. But then a pale face appeared on the window for half a second. That stopped my heart. Long nose, sharp cheekbones, and eyes, red, cold, unblinking. Eyes that don't just look at you, they pry you open. I recognized that face immediately. Vlad the Impaler. My throat made a noise like I just swallowed a Lego. The window fogged over even though it was a warm October night. The air smelled like damp soil, fresh grave soil. Something tapped against the wooden frame. Once, twice, slowly, rhythmically, like fingers drumming, trying to get my attention. I should have run. I should have set the notebook on fire and sprinted straight into the forest screaming, nope, nope, nope. Instead, I sat down with the notebook like some underpaid paranormal detective. That's the problem with being curious. You end up nose deep in your own doom. The first page said, carved in shaky strokes, a lost chronicle, the return of Vlad. I laughed nervously. Okay, someone really went overboard with their vampire fanfiction. But there were dry brown stains near the edges. Definitely not coffee. Definitely not wine. I closed that thought before it could fully form. Something thumped against the window again. Louder this time. I looked up sharply. Nothing outside but the tree line, except the reflection in the glass. Behind me, a figure. Tall, lean, motionless, staring at me. I spun around, empty room, but the reflection still showed him, standing right behind my shoulder. Vlad, watching. That's when I realized something was wrong with the candle. The flame wasn't flickering randomly, no. It was bending toward the notebook, as if something was breathing on it from the other side of the page. The second page contained someone's journal entry from 1476. We saw him tonight. No moon, no light, yet his eyes burned, red as dying embers. He spoke not a single word, but his silence was louder than thunder. I muttered, great, historical fear diary. Just what I needed tonight. The chair in the corner cracked again, this time louder, as if something had just sat down on it. I tried negotiating. Look, chair, buddy, I'm under a lot of supernatural stress. Please behave. It didn't listen. I turned back to the window. The reflection now held only a pair of glowing eyes, hovering, detached, watching me with a kind of cold hunger, like I was a microwavable snack. Vlad's eyes are the kind that make you feel like he's already measured your bones and picked one to break first. They're ancient, cruel, patient, and America has no training for that. No ghost tour, no Halloween haunted house prepares you for the look of a man who invented a whole horror genre by accident. I tried to laugh again, but it came out like a dying squirrel. The third page of the chronicle read, "He looks through you, past you, as if he's studying your soul, examining your weakest fear. One stare is enough to make day feel like midnight." Right then, something in the far corner of the cabin cleared its throat. A human sound. My spine froze. I turned my head slowly, slow like I was underwater. Nothing there, but on the dusty wooden floor, two wet footprints appeared. Long, narrow, facing me. It felt like my heart tried to escape through my ears. There were three things I knew with absolute certainty. One, Vlad was extremely close. Two, reading this notebook was somehow calling him. Three, I was absolutely, unquestionably stupid for continuing to read. But I couldn't stop. Fear wasn't pushing me forward. Some strange pull was. The chronicle wanted to be read, and Vlad wanted me to keep turning the pages. The candle suddenly elongated its flame, stretching unnaturally tall. The air turned icy, like the cabin had been dunked into a freezer. My breath came out in pale clouds. Page 4 read, "He shall return when the chronicle is opened again." This is not his story. It is his doorway. I blinked. So basically, I just rang the demon doorbell. Right on cue, the room fell utterly silent. Not quiet. Silent. The kind of silence that hurts. The kind that means something else is listening. A shadow in the corner thickened. Darker and darker, gathering like storm clouds collapsing into a single point. From that blackness, two red eyes blinked open. This time, they didn't hover. They moved forward. Slow, deliberate, hungry. Then the face emerged, sharp cheekbones like carved stone, thin lips curled in a dark, amused smirk. Skin pale as bleached bone. His long hair framed his face like shadowy curtains. And those eyes, God, those eyes. They were the eyes of someone who didn't just witness nightmares. He authored them. Vlad the Impaler stepped fully into the candlelight. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. His stare alone said, "Continue reading. I'm not finished with you yet." And the cabin, the candle, the night, everything held its breath that I didn't dare breathe. Vlad was standing only a few feet away, close enough that the air around him seemed to freeze the room. Every instinct in my thoroughly American bloodstream screamed that this was the part where the main character dies first. The candle beside me flickered, not from wind, but from pure panic. Vlad tilted his head the slightest bit, the way a cat analyzes a mouse before deciding whether to play with it or kill it. His eyes glinted red, and his expression had the absolute audacity of someone who knew exactly how terrifying he looked and enjoyed it. I opened my mouth to say something brave. Instead, what came out was, "Hey, so, big fan of your historical legacy?" He didn't blink, didn't move, just stared. My soul did a little backflip and tried to leave my body. Slowly, very slowly, Vlad raised his pale hand. For a moment, I thought he was going to impale me with his fingers, like a DIY kebab kit. But he simply pointed at the notebook. Of course, he wanted me to keep reading. Because obviously that's what you do when a centuries-old supernatural warlord tells you to. You obey. You don't argue. You don't ask questions. You don't open Yelp to see if other customers recommend compliance. Hands shaking, I turned the page. He watched me the way a teacher stares a child they're 99% sure is about to fail a test. The next entry was written in a slanted script. He does not feed like beasts of folklore. He feeds on something more tender. Fear. He tastes it before you feel it. When he looks at you, he already knows. My left eye twitched. "Well, that's comforting," I whispered. Vlad's lips curved into the faintest smirk. The kind serial killers give in documentaries right before the dramatic music drops. He took one silent step forward. The floorboards didn't creak. They surrendered. The room darkened, as if his presence simply consumed light. My phone, which had been dead for hours, buzzed once in my pocket and died again out of pure fear. I cleared my throat, tried to restore some dignity. "Listen, I don't want any trouble. I just, found the notebook and he didn't let me finish." His eyes narrowed, glowing slightly brighter, and suddenly a gust of cold air whipped through the room, slamming the door shut. The sound echoed like a gunshot. "Oh cool," I muttered. "Just what I needed." A vampire with dramatic flair. Then something happened I absolutely did not sign up for. Vlad opened his mouth. Not wide, just enough to speak. But the voice that came out wasn't loud. It wasn't deep. It wasn't even human. It was layered, multiple tones at once. Old, echoing, like whispers trapped in stone. Read. That single word cracked through the air like ice breaking. If fear were a drink, I had just taken a full shot straight to the bloodstream. I turned the page again, because obviously that's the best option when a spectral medieval warlord commands you. The next passage had writing so frantic the ink bled through the page. He does not haunt places. He haunts people. Once he marks you, shadows follow your voice. Mirrors remember your face wrong. He arrives before you know you've called him. I swallowed. Hard. That's such great news for me. For the first time, Vlad's gaze moved away from me and onto the notebook. He regarded it with a mix of nostalgia and disdain, like someone spotting their embarrassing high school yearbook photo, except his version included war crimes. Then the cabin shook, literally shook. Dust rained from the ceiling. The candle almost tipped over. The window rattled so violently I thought it might shatter and let in a whole marching band of demons. I whispered, "Is this an earthquake or is he just stretching?" The air grew denser. The shadows bled across the walls, forming shapes that shouldn't logically exist. Stretched limbs, elongated heads, silent screaming mouths. They flickered like broken film strips. I backed up until my spine hit the wall. Vlad watched the shadows calmly, as if enjoying a show he'd seen 100 times. He finally spoke again, this time directing the words at me. "You opened the chronicle." I nodded like an aggressively obedient bobblehead. "Yes, my bad. Huge mistake. Won't happen again. You can take it back." He didn't even look at me. His gaze was fixed on the notebook. "The door is open." "What door?" I asked, voice squeaking in a way no adult should sound. He slowly lifted his eyes and locked them on mine. "Your door." "Okay, cool. Great." I absolutely hated that. Before I could ask what that even meant, the shadows on the wall began to peel away. Yes, peel like stickers, sliding down to the floor and gathering around Vlad's feet like obedient hounds. They twisted upward, forming tall, sharp spires behind him, mimicking stakes. Impaling stakes. I decided breathing was optional at that point. The notebook vibrated under my palm. The next page flipped on its own. The words rearranged themselves, bleeding like fresh ink. When the chronicle awakens, so does he. And when he arrives, he chooses. A witness. A keeper. A host. I slammed the notebook shut. Nope. Nope, 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 nope. Absolutely not. I am not hosting anything except maybe a potluck at Christmas. Vlad's eyebrows arched slightly, unimpressed. He stepped closer. The candle flame bent all the way toward him, then extinguished completely. Darkness swallowed the room whole. Only his eyes remained visible, two red coals floating in the void. He whispered, "It is too late." My voice trembled. "For what?" His hand reached out, not to hurt me, worse, to touch the notebook in my grip. The moment he made contact, the ground beneath me softened. The cabin floor dissolved into a black fog, swirling like ink in water. My feet sank first, then my legs. I clawed at the wooden walls, but they too turned to vapor. Vlad didn't sink. He stood on the fog like it was solid ground. He looked down at me with cold satisfaction. "You opened the chronicle," he repeated, "and now you belong to it." The fog surged upward, swallowing my waist, my chest, my neck. I screamed, "Dude, I just want a T.O. read." Darkness engulfed my face. And then, silence. I didn't die. I mean, I definitely felt like I died. There was the whole darkness swallowing my soul thing, which usually implies a bad Yelp rating. But instead of fire or harps or a loading screen, I heard dripping. Drip, drip, drip. And my back hurt. Which, was weird because I was almost certain backs weren't supposed to hurt in the afterlife. I opened my eyes. I was lying on a cold stone floor, staring up at a ceiling so high it might have needed its own weather report. Huge arches curved overhead, disappearing into darkness. The air smelled like old paper, iron, and something faintly metallic. I sat up slowly. My head spun. The first word out of my mouth was, of course, ow. Dim torches lined the walls, their flames burning low and motionless, like they were too tired to flicker. Endless rows of shelves stretched in every direction, filled with books. Not regular books. These were wrapped in chains, locked shut with rusted metal clasps, some of them literally leaking shadow. Awesome. I've been kidnapped by the worst version of the Library of Congress. Something lay a few inches from my hand. The notebook. The Lost Chronicle. Of course you're here, I muttered. Why wouldn't you be? You're clearly the toxic relationship in this situation. I reached for it and froze. A tall shadow stretched across the floor toward me, long before I heard any footsteps. It slid up my legs, my chest, across my face. The torches dimmed, as if bowing. I didn't need to look to know who it was. Still, morbid curiosity forced my head to turn. Vlad the Impaler stood a few yards away, as still as a statue, framed by towering shelves of chained books. His hair hung dark around his pallid face, his eyes glowing faintly red, like cooled lava deciding whether or not to reignite. He looked significantly less ghostly here, more solid, real, dangerous. Welcome, he said, voice echoing through the hall like it belonged here. I pushed myself to my feet, wobbling. So, this is what? Your Airbnb? He stared at me, expression unreadable. This is the archive. I glanced around. Cool. You know, I can see the whole Eternal Damnation meets Special Collections vibe. He took a step closer. The air temperature dropped a good 20 degrees. You entered it, he said. Few do. To be fair, I replied. I kind of fell through like a glitching video game, so entered feels generous. One of the chained books on a nearby shelf rattled violently, metal clinking. I flinched. Vlad didn't. Every chronicle is a door, he said. Most remain closed. Some open. The one you touched was mine. Yeah, about that, I said, lifting a hand. Huge misunderstanding. I didn't know your journal was like a magical TSA checkpoint. Can we, maybe, I don't know, undo it? Hit Control plus Z on this whole thing. His gaze sharpened. There was no warmth in it. There was interest. Scientific. Predatory. You read, he murmured. You called. I exhaled loudly. In my defense, I also read cereal boxes. Does that mean I belong to Kellogg's? His eyes darkened, just a fraction. You joke. It's how I cope. We stared at each other for a long, tense moment. Somewhere in the distance, a whisper drifted through the shelves, like someone was flipping pages very, very fast. I cleared my throat. So, what do you want from me? You opened my chronicle, he said. Now you're bound to it. To me. To this place. Okay, but like, in a metaphorical way or a legally binding contract from hell way. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he gestured toward the endless rows of chained books. Each book, Vlad said, is a life. A story. A tether. Some are forgotten. Some are unfinished. Some, his eyes flashed. Some refused to end. I swallowed. And yours. His gaze landed on the notebook at my feet. Lost, he said quietly. Until you. Well, that did not make me feel special in a good way. So what now? I asked. I work here. Is this like cosmic jury duty? To my absolute horror, one corner of his mouth twitched. Not a full smile. Just a tiny, dark micro smirk that said he found something about me. Mildly amusing. You're not dead, he said. Yet, honestly, that yet feels unnecessary. You are. He tilted his head, searching for the word. Between what? Your world, he said, and mine. Okay, hold up, I said. Your world? Last I checked, you were from 15th century Wallachia, not an alternate dimension with a book fetish. He took a few steps, gliding past me, his cloak barely whispering over the stone floor. Time, he said, is a story humans tell themselves to avoid facing eternity. I existed before your textbooks. I outlived your historians. I do not belong to your dates. And yet, I said, following cautiously, you somehow learned English. He answered without looking at me. You think this is English, right? Good. Great. Not spooky at all. We walked between two rows of shelves. Some of the books seemed to shiver as we passed. One of them hissed. I pretended not to notice because my sanity was already on thin ice. Finally, we reached a pedestal in the center of a wide, circular chamber. On it rested an empty iron stand, like something was supposed to sit there and didn't, or hadn't. Vlad stopped beside it and turned to me. "Put it there," he said, nodding at the chronicle still lying by my feet. I hesitated. Is this one of those, if I put the cursed artifact on the altar, it completes the ritual that chains my soul forever situations? Because I feel like that's something I should know up front. His eyes bored into mine. "You are already chained," he said simply. That did not help. Still, I picked up the chronicle. It hummed faintly in my hand, like a heartbeat inside the leather. The moment I set it on the stand, the chains lying coiled around the pedestal snapped to life. They slithered up like metal snakes, wrapping around the notebook, locking it in place with a loud, echoing clank. All the torches in the archive flare at once. Far away, dozens, maybe hundreds of chained books rattled in response, like a chorus of restless bones. I stumbled back. "So that's it? I just filed you back." Vlad stepped closer to the stand, trailing a pale finger along the iron. His eyes were softer now, not kind, just less murder-white. "Now it is anchored again," he said. "But the bond is made." "Define bond," I said quickly. "On a scale from we occasionally share dreams to my body is a timeshare for a historic warlord." He turned to me. "When the chronicle opens," he said, "you are pulled to it. When I walk between worlds, I may do so through you." I stared. "So I'm a haunted VPN?" "Whatever that is," he said flatly, "yes." I groaned, dragging a hand down my face. This is so above my pay grade. Vlad took one deliberate step toward me, then another, until he was close enough that I could see the faint blue veins beneath his icy skin, the slight red ring around his irises, the sharp, inhuman stillness of his features. His gaze searched my face like he was studying every flicker of fear. "You are afraid," he observed. "Wow," I said. "What gave it away? The shaking or the terrible jokes?" "Both." For a second, just 1 second, something like curiosity, almost amusement, glinted in his eyes. "You will return," he said, "to your world. Relief hit me like caffeine." "Great. Yes. Let's do that. Take me home. I have a very normal, very non-haunted life I'm suddenly extremely grateful for." But, he continued, voice dropping, "you will hear the archive. Sometimes in dreams. Sometimes when you read. Sometimes when you are alone." I winced. "So like all the time?" "You called," he said. "You cannot uncall." The floor beneath my feet began to dim, blurring at the edges, like someone lowering the resolution of reality. The torches stretched into streaks of light. Vlad's figure remained sharp, fixed in place as everything else warped. "Wait," I said quickly, panic bubbling back up. "If I'm connected to you, does that mean you can just show up? Anytime." His eyes glowed brighter. "Yes." I stared at him. He stared back. We stayed like that in awful, horrible silence. "Cool," I said weakly. "That's fantastic. Love that for me." The darkness rose again, soft but implacable, curling up around my legs, my chest, my face. "As you walk your world," Vlad's voice echoed. "Remember this." The black swallowed everything but his eyes. "The story," he whispered, "is not over." And then the archive vanished. I woke up face down on something extremely uncomfortable. At first I thought it was gravel. Then I realized it was worse. My own front porch, which is significantly more humiliating because the neighborhood joggers absolutely saw me lying there like a discarded tortilla. I groaned and rolled onto my back. The sky above me was blue. Birds were chirping. A lawnmower buzzed somewhere down the street. My soul felt like it had been put through a dishwasher on the heavy cycle. But hey, at least I wasn't in the nightmare library of eternal regret anymore. I sat up slowly. My porch light was flickering, even though it was daytime. That felt like a bad sign. Something scratched lightly against the wood near my hand. I jumped like a caffeinated squirrel and looked down. The chronicle wasn't there. Thank God. Except, a faint black scorch mark was burned into the wood in the exact shape of a notebook. "Absolutely not," I muttered. "Return to sender. No forwarding address." I hauled myself upright and staggered into my living room. Everything was normal. Couch, rug, TV, the plan I kept killing and buying again. The only thing out of place was the mirror above the fireplace. It was fogged. From inside, I froze. "Don't," I whispered. "Don't you dare." A handprint pressed against the inside of the mirror. I let out the kind of noise you make when you step on a Lego barefoot. The fog slowly faded, and the mirror returned to normal. Well, normalish. My reflection looked back at me, but something was off. I looked paler, my eyes a little darker, my hair slightly messy. Okay, that part might have been accurate. I leaned closer just to make sure. My reflection didn't lean. It just stared. Then it smiled, slow, cold, deliberate. "No!" I yelled and stumbled backward over my coffee table. A lamp fell. My dignity fell harder. While I looked back, the mirror was totally fine. My own reflection looked confused at the disaster I'd made. "Great," I muttered. "Haunted VPN, haunted mirror, haunted porch. Love this for me." Before I could decide whether to burn the house down or move to Antarctica, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out. The screen was black. Then white text appeared, typed letter by letter, as if someone invisible was texting on the other side. Open the Chronicle. I threw the phone onto the couch like it had personally insulted me. No, I'm done. I'm not opening anything. I'm not reading anything. I don't even want to look at menus at restaurants anymore. My phone lit again. You cannot ignore it. Then, IT belongs to you. I swallowed. Why? Why me? I'm not main character material. I'm like the background character who warns the main character not to go in there. The phone buzzed again. This time, a picture appeared. A picture of my living room, taken from behind me. I whipped around so fast I nearly gave myself whiplash. Nothing was there, but the air suddenly felt heavier, like someone else was breathing in the room, watching, waiting. I grabbed my phone again, hands shaking. New message. He is coming. The lights flickered. The hum in the air deepened. A cold breeze moved through the closed windows, brushing past my neck. I felt the temperature drop 10 degrees instantly. A whisper, faint and layered, drifted through the room. "Read," my blood iced. "No," he whispered. "I'm not doing this. You can't make me. You can't." A loud thud slammed against the outside of my house. Then another. The walls vibrated. Pictures rattled. A single crack split across the drywall like a lightning bolt. Something was trying to get in. "I'm not opening that door," I said, backing up. "I don't care who it is, Jehovah's Witness, Girl Scouts. Nope, go away." My phone buzzed again. "Look." Against every instinct screaming inside my body, I stepped toward the front window and peeked out. A shape stood in the yard. Tall, still, watching. His long dark coat fluttered, although there was no wind. His face was pale as moonlight. His eyes, God, his eyes were glowing red. Vlad the Impaler, in broad daylight, standing in the middle of suburban America, like he was about to ruin an HOA meeting. He lifted his head slightly. He saw me, and he smiled. Not a friendly smile, not a human smile. A slow, hungry, ancient smile. I stumbled backward and knocked over a shelf. My phone buzzed without stopping. "Open the Chronicle. Open it now. This is the first call. There will be more." I grabbed the phone with trembling hands. "I don't have it. The Chronicle's not here." Another message popped up. "Check your doorstep." I stopped breathing. Very slowly, extremely reluctantly, I turned toward the front door. A small shadow fell across the bottom of the doorframe. Something was placed there. My heart sank into my stomach like an elevator dropping from the 20th floor. I walked closer. Each step felt like wading through wet cement. I reached the door. My hand shook as I unlocked it. I pulled it open an inch. A leather-bound book sat neatly on the welcome mat. The Chronicle. Except now, the chains wrapped around it were gone, and the cover was warm. I backed away. No, not touching it. Not opening it. "You can't make me." My phone buzzed. I didn't need to look to know what it said, but curiosity killed my remaining brain cells, so I checked. "If you do not open IT, he will." I looked through the window. Vlad wasn't in the yard anymore, but he was standing on my porch. Right behind the door, the handle twisted. He was opening it, and I was out of time I turned slowly. The doorknob turned with a soft metallic click, far too calm for the amount of terror it delivered directly into my bloodstream. I did the only logical thing a grown adult can do when a centuries-old supernatural executioner is opening their front door. I screamed, "No!" and kicked the Chronicle inside like it was a grenade. The door stopped turning. The porch went silent. For a moment, just one fragile moment, I thought maybe, just maybe, Vlad had reconsidered. Maybe he'd gone home, decided I wasn't worth the paperwork. The door handle bent inward like soft clay. Bent, with a single grip. "Oh good," I whispered. "He's upgrading from breaking and entering to breaking the laws of physics." Fantastic. The door swung open. But Vlad wasn't standing in the doorway. He was already inside, right behind me, like a malfunctioning animatronic, and came face to face with him. His eyes glowed faintly, twin red coals burning in a pale, unmoving face. He looked like a Victorian ghost who'd just walked into a modern house and disapproved of everything in it. His gaze swept the room, then landed on me. "You hesitate," he said. I do that around things that want to eat my soul." He stepped closer without actually seeming to move. 1 second, he was several feet away. The next, I could see the red ring around his irises. "You were called," he said softly. "You must answer." "Well, your call comes with horrible customer service." I snapped before my brain could stop me. "You didn't even give me a manual." His expression didn't change. Vlad was not known for his sense of humor, but something in his eyes flickered. Recognition? Amusement? Or maybe he was just calculating which bone in my body would make the best snap. He looked down at the Chronicle lying on the floor, where I'd kicked it. The leather cover still pulsed faintly, as if the book itself were breathing. "Open it," he said. I swallowed. "And if I don't?" He leaned closer. His voice dropped to a whisper that tickled the air near my ear. "You do not wish to know." Okay, that was fair. Horrifying, but fair. With shaking hands, I reached down and picked up the Chronicle. It felt warm again. Too warm. Like a heartbeat inside the cover. I took a deep breath. I opened it. The pages flashed white, blinding for a second. When the light faded, new words had appeared on the first blank page. The second call. "Oh great," I muttered. "There are multiple calls. This is basically the world's worst telemarketing plan." Vlad stood perfectly still, watching. The next line wrote itself as I held the book. "Witness is required. The archive demands presence." "I'm the witness." I said. "Witness to what?" "Your comeback tour." This time, I swear something like irritation crossed his face. Only for a fraction of a second. But it was definitely irritation. He spoke quietly. "The archive awakens. And when it does, the world bleed." "Bleed," I repeated. "Like, metaphorically, or do I need to buy waterproof shoes?" "You cannot joke this away." "Buddy, I can and I will. It's either that or cry." He stepped around me, his cloak whispering across my floor like mist. He touched the wall lightly. The wall trembled. Cracks spiderwebbed across the paint, glowing faintly with dark light. Yes, dark light should not exist, but here we were. "Your world thins," Vlad said. "The boundary grows weaker." I stared. Is this because I opened the book? Because if so, I'd like to state I'm very impressionable and should not be trusted with cosmically significant literature. He turned to me. His eyes no longer glowed with anger or hunger. They glowed with certainty. "You were chosen," he said. "Please," I said, "please tell me someone else was unavailable." "The Chronicle called you." I slapped a hand on my forehead. "The Chronicle also tried to kill me. That's not a healthy calling." He took another step closer. "You have something others do not." "Oh God," I whispered. "It's sarcasm, isn't it?" A pause. "Yes." I groaned. "Perfect. Just perfect. My coping mechanism is now a supernatural asset." Suddenly, the floor vibrated again. Not from Vlad. From the book. New words carved themselves onto the page with violent, jagged strokes. "The second call is a summoning. Prepare the vessel." I blinked. "Vessel? What vessel? We talking boat? Cup? Human body? Because I'm 12,000% not up for body possession day." The lights flickered. The temperature dropped. A low hum filled the air, vibrating through the walls, the floor, my bones. Then, knock, knock, knock. Someone was knocking on my front door. Not Vlad. He was standing 2 feet from me. We both turned. The knocking came again. 3 slow, heavy strikes. Are you expecting someone? I whispered. He gave me a flat, deadpan look that clearly meant, I do not receive visitors. The knocking grew louder. Then a voice, not human, not alive, not dead, a rasp like gravel grinding underwater. Limb in my chest tightened. No, absolutely not. We are not doing this. The door rattled. The hum grew louder. The chronicle shook violently in my hands. Vlad's expression sharpened. It begins, he murmured. What begins? I demanded. He turned toward me slowly. The summoning. The lights exploded. The room plunged into darkness. And something huge, something with too many limbs, began forcing its way under the door. The thing squeezing under my door did not follow any known anatomical rules, or moral rules, or physics rules. Honestly, it looked like my nightmares had eaten another nightmare, and then both nightmares filed a joint tax return. Its first limb, if you could call it that, slid under the gap like black tar made of bones. Thin joints cracked loudly as it stretched, fingers scraping across the floor with wet, clicking sounds. I scrambled backward so fast I became a human Roomba. What I asked that? I shouted. Vlad turned his head slightly, as if observing a mildly interesting wildlife documentary. A herald, he said calmly. A herald of what? The apocalypse. Not yet. Not yet? I hate not yet. Not yet means soon. The herald continued to ooze into my house like a horrific toothpaste monster. A second limb slid under, then a third, then something like a head, round, smooth, no eyes, no mouth, just a face-shaped absence, pressed itself under the door, bending unnaturally, flattening like dough. I clapped both hands over my mouth to stop myself from screaming. The thing didn't stand when it finished squeezing inside. It unfolded, long, thin, and jointed in too many places. Its body cracked upright one section at a time, like someone had assembled a human out of coat hangers. Finally, standing full height in my living room, it towered nearly to the ceiling. Its head rotated without sound. It faced Vlad first, then slowly turned toward me. Vlad didn't move. This is your fault, I whispered. Vlad didn't argue, which was terrifying. The herald's faceless head leaned forward, sniffing, except it had no nose. No features at all, just smooth flesh shifting like wet clay. Then it spoke, not with sound, not with a mouth, but directly into my skull. Vessel. I slapped my hands over my ears because that's what you do when a mind voice yells at you. Stop talking in my brain. The herald twitched. Limbs cracked. Then it pointed one absurdly long finger at me. Prepare. No preparing. I yelled. I am unprepared. I've never been prepared for anything in my life. Vlad finally stepped between us, cloak brushing the floor like a shadow made of fog. You are early, he told the creature. The herald trembled violently, as if a glitch was running through its body. Then it bowed, actually bowed, full body hinge, like a corrupted marionette showing respect. Master, the archive, calls. My jaw dropped open. Master, I yelled. What do you mean, Master? He's in charge of that. Vlad ignored me, which honestly felt rude given the circumstances. The vessel is not ready, he said. Oh, that was just perfect. Wonderful. Spectacular news. I was the vessel. The vessel for what? No, I said loudly, pointing at the herald. Return to sender. Wrong address. I'm not a vessel. I'm barely a functioning person. The herald shuddered, claws scraping my floor deeply enough to leave black streaks. Then it straightened, limbs cracking like breaking icicles. The second call must be answered. Then all its limbs extended at once. At me. Time to go, I shrieked, diving sideways behind the sofa. The herald lunged, but Vlad moved. Fast, too fast, a blur of black cloak and pale hands. One moment he was standing still. The next, he was holding the herald by the throat, if it had a throat. The herald spasmed, jerking violently. Master, the archive, waits. You will wait, Vlad said. His voice wasn't loud, but it cracked the air like lightning. The herald collapsed into a heap of limbs, bowing so low its forehead hit the floor. Then it began dissolving, melting into black vapor that crawled backward under the door, leaving only a faint sulfur smell and the worst memory I'd ever have. The door slammed shut by itself. Silence. I peeked over the sofa. Is it gone? Yes, Vlad said. Permanently? No, I threw my hands up. Of course not. That thing looked like a sleep paralysis demon after going to the gym. Vlad turned toward me, expression unreadable. It will return when the call strengthens. I stared. And when is that? When you answer. I am not answering anything but my emails. He tilted his head. You will. No. I snapped, standing up finally. I'm not your vessel, your witness, your butler, your translator, your roommate, your emotional support human. Nothing. Something flickered in his eyes. Not anger, a kind of dark amusement. You think you have a choice. I know I have a choice, I said. And I choose no. Very firmly. No with capital letters. No with sparkles. No with fireworks. He stepped closer. You were chosen the moment you touched the Chronicle. While I touch a lot of things in my house, I shot back. Does that mean everything owns me now? The toaster? The couch? The fridge? He glared, which honestly answered my question pretty well. I paced back and forth. Okay, fine. You say I'm chosen. A vessel. A witness. Whatever. What does that mean? The Chronicle will write through you, he said simply. My stomach dropped. Right through me? Like automatic writing? Or like possession? Yes. That wasn't an or question. The floor rattled again, soft this time, like something distant but approaching. Vlad straightened suddenly, as if sensing something I couldn't. The third call approaches. No, I yelled. We haven't even finished the second one. It does not wait. I pressed both hands to my temples. Please tell me the third call isn't worse. It is, he said. Why would you tell me that? Then the Chronicle in my hands began to glow. Not warm, not hot, but pulsing like a living heart. The pages fluttered open violently, slapping against my fingers. New words burned themselves across the paper. The third call. The witness must be claimed. I froze. Claimed? By who? Not by you, right? You're not claiming anything. I'm not claimable. Vlad didn't answer. Instead, a deep rumbling echoed outside, like thunder made of bones. The windows shook. My house vibrated. Dust drifted from the ceiling. I whispered, "What's happening?" Vlad turned toward the door. "The archive," he said quietly. "It is reaching through your world." How big is this thing? Endless. Fantastic. Just great. My home was about to be bulldozed by a supernatural library. Then, boom, the entire street shook. Car alarms wailed. Dogs barked. The sky darkened as a massive shadow fell across my yard. I ran to the window and promptly regretted having eyes. Something towered over my house, impossibly tall, leaning out of the sky itself, like a giant figure made of ink and bone, reaching down toward my roof with clawed hands big enough to crush cars. "It seeks you," Vlad said softly. "What?" I yelled. "The Chronicle chose you. Tell it to you and choose me." "That is not possible." The sky creature's hand touched my roof. The shingles cracked. The lights flickered. The Chronicle burned brighter. And then a single enormous eye opened in the sky, red, round, and staring directly at me. The third call had come, and it wanted me. The giant, I stared, and everything went white. The giant red eye in the sky stared down at me like God had outsourced Judgment Day to a demonic security camera. It didn't blink. It didn't move. It just watched, unblinking, enormous, and filled with a hunger that made every cell in my body file for early retirement. I backed away from the window, so fast I tripped over an ottoman that had never once been in the way until right now. That thing, I screamed, pointing wildly upward. Better not be who is claiming me. Vlad didn't look at the eye. He didn't need to. He could sense it in the way a shark senses blood. "The third call is the claim," he said quietly. "Well, I decline the claim." I yelled. "I reject the charges. I refuse the delivery. Return to sender." A low rumble shook the air, vibrating my bones like I was sitting inside a subwoofer the size of a skyscraper. The creature's massive hand slid across my roof tiles. My house groaned like it wanted to resign from being a house altogether. The chronicle in my hands vibrated so violently it was like holding an angry migraine. Words began carving themselves into the next page. So violently the pen strokes dug into the paper and bled with shadow. The witness must be taken. The doorway must be claimed. What door? I shouted. What door? I'm not a door. I'm barely a functional human adult. Vlad's voice was low. It means you. Oh, fantastic. I'm the door. The human door. Perfect. Wonderful. I've always dreamed of being architecture. The eye above my house narrowed. If an eye made of cosmic hatred and eldritch nightmare, Jews could narrow. Then the voice came, Vesiel. It rattled windows, cracked glass, and probably caused at least 2 local birds to rethink their life choices. I pressed my hands to my ears. Stop calling me that. The chronicle snapped shut, then sprung open again. Page after page flipped until it landed on a blank spread, and then ink poured across it like spilled oil, shaping words faster than I could read. The third call is not a request. The archive will take what is its own. I am not anyone's own. I screamed. I'm behind on my taxes, but that doesn't mean the IRS can't have me. You definitely can't. Vlad finally turned to me. His expression was strange, almost thoughtful. You cannot outrun it, he said. Watch me, I said, grabbing my car keys off the coffee table like an Olympic sprinter. We locked eyes. You cannot escape by car, he said. Then I'll use Uber. You cannot escape by Uber. Then I stopped. Do you even know what Uber is? No, he admitted, but you cannot escape. The sky creature's shadow grew darker, colder. The pressure in the room increased until my ears popped. The creature's second hand slammed onto my driveway. Concrete cracked. My car alarm went off. My entire soul left my body for a moment and came back with a travel brochure for a safer dimension. Okay, I whispered, just to check. This isn't normal, right? Like, even for haunted book standards. This is what comes, Vlad said, when the chronicle calls its witness. I clutched my head. But why me? Why me? He didn't answer. Not because he didn't know, but because telling me would probably send me into a coma. The ground shook again, harder. The lights went out. Every shadow in the room stretched toward me, long and hungry, like black vines eager to drag me away. The eye in the sky opened wider, so wide the clouds themselves bent around it like fabric being stretched. Then the voice came again, louder, deeper, as if the entire world was speaking in one unified, horrifying whisper. Witness, I backed up until I hit Vlad's chest. He didn't move, didn't flinch, didn't offer comfort. He simply watched. Watch me. This is for you, he said quietly. Not for me. I didn't ask for any of this. You answered. I didn't mean to. I was just reading. That was enough. I hate books. Outside, a massive claw dipped lower, curling under the edge of my roof like it was peeling open a sardine can. Drywall cracked above me. Dust rained down. I panicked. Fully. Completely. With no shame. Vlad, do something. He turned to look at the creature, then back at me. I cannot stop the archive, he said. It is older than I am. My stomach dropped. Older than you. How old are you? He ignored the question. The third call claims the witness, he repeated. And what does that mean? I yelled. It means, he said, as the ceiling beams creaked under the pressure of cosmic horror's hand, it comes to take you into the archive. No. I didn't want to go there again. Last time I was there, I face-planted on stone and was emotionally bullied by books. The chronicle glowed again. So bright now the room was bathed in pale white light. Vlad's eyes widened slightly. The call is finishing, he said. It will take you. Now, stop saying that like it's normal. Then the ceiling finally gave way. Part of the roof ripped upward as the massive hand curled around it and tore. Wind howled through the room. Debris flew. My house screamed like a creature being broken apart. The giant eye filled the opening. Directly above me, watching me, a single red beam of light shot down, enveloping me like a spotlight. I screamed. Vlad stood motionless beside me, as if watching a ritual he'd seen 100 times. Vlad! He bent slightly toward me. You will survive, he said. That does not help. You will enter the archive. Stop saying that. You will be changed. Stop talking. The beam of red light grew blinding. I felt my feet lifting off the floor, my body rising, my voice tearing from my throat. The chronicle floated upward toward me, pages fluttering like frantic wings. White, not just bright, total, like someone had erased the entire universe and then forgotten to draw it back in. No sound, no weight, no up, no down, nothing but thick, suffocating whiteness stretching forever. I tried to scream. No sound came out. I tried to move. Nothing moved. I couldn't feel my body at all. No arms, no legs, just the uncomfortable realization that my thoughts were still here and working overtime. Okay, I thought, so this is it. I've officially become a floating brain in cosmic yogurt. Then, very faintly, a sound started. Drip, drip, drip. You have got to be kidding me, I thought. If I wake up on that stone floor again, I swear the white cracked. Like glass, a thin black line split across the emptiness, growing wider, branching out like veins in ice. The whiteness shattered into shards, and I fell through. Hard, I slammed down on cold stone with a noise that was probably not dignified. My spine filed a formal complaint. My elbows demanded workers' comp. I groaned. The ceiling above me was high, arched, and full of shadows. The archive, again. 10 out of 10, I muttered to no one. Did not miss this place. I pushed myself up slowly. The vast hall stretched out in every direction, shelves of chained books lining the walls. But something was off this time. It was darker, not just dim heavy. The air was thicker, like I was underwater. The torches burned lower, their flames barely holding on. The books rattled softly, as if whispering to each other. Then I realized what else was different. I wasn't alone. Figures stood between the shelves. Some were half-formed shadows. Some were more humanoid, pale, flickering. Their faces blurred at the edges, like someone had tried to remember them from a dream and failed. Some had clothes from different eras. One in ragged robes, another in a Victorian coat, another in a t-shirt and jeans that said Cleveland Rocks. They all had one thing in common. They were staring at me. I said weakly. Cool. A crowd. Love that. One of them, a woman in a long, torn dress, stepped forward. Her hair floated slightly as if underwater. Her eyes were hollow but bright. You knew, she said. Her voice echoed strangely, like it came from 3 places at once. I swallowed. Define new. Eve visited. By accident. Another figure, this one a guy in a hoodie, snorted. Yeah, that's what we all said the first time. I stared. Are you like me? Witnesses? The man gestured around. Welcome to the witness support group. We meet whenever the archive drags someone in screaming. I did not scream. I lied with confidence. Several of them nodded with expressions that said, we heard you scream. The woman in the dress tilted her head. He's with Vlad. Her tone made it sound like I was dating a war crime. I'm not with him, I said quickly. He kind of just shows up uninvited and ruins my day. The hoodie guy whistled. If Vlad's chronicle bonded to you, you're in deep, man. Helpful, I said. Love the encouragement. Before I could ask more, the air shifted. Every figure went instantly still. The chains on the books tightened with a metallic hiss. The torches straightened. The darkness itself seemed to stand at attention. They were reacting to someone. Footsteps echoed from behind me. Slow, measured, crisp against stone. I didn't need to turn to know who it was. I turned anyway. Vlad walked down the central aisle like this was his hallway, and everyone else was furniture. The witnesses parted silently as he passed, their blurred faces tightening with fear, resentment, something like reluctant respect. His eyes found me immediately. Your return, he said. Yeah, I said. You forgot to validate my parking. No one laughed, not even hoodie guy. Vlad's gaze swept me from head to toe, like he was checking if the third call had left any visible damage. You survived the claim, he said. Barely. 10 out of 10 hated it. The archive has marked you deeper, he continued. You're no longer at the edge. I frowned. What does that mean? The woman in the dress answered instead, her voice quiet. It means, she said, you're not just visiting anymore. Hoodie guy shoved his hands in his pockets. You're closer to this place, to its side than yours. My stomach twisted. Define closer. Vlad ignored them, stepping closer to me. You felt the pull, he said. The third call. It can reach you now. Anywhere. Anywhere, I repeated, as in at the grocery store, in the shower, on a date. Hoodie guy snorted again. Oh, you think you're still going on dates? I glared at him. Let me have my denial. The crowd of witnesses began to disperse slowly, fading back into the shelves like shadows retreating at dusk. Only a few lingered at the edges, watching with hollow-eyed curiosity. I turned to Vlad. So what now? The call claimed me. I'm here again, everyone staring at me like I'm a new kid in school.
What's the grand plan? He studied me for a long moment. Then unexpectedly he said, You right, I blinked. I what? You are the witness. You will record. I gestured at the infinite shelves. You already have books, tons. A terrifying amount. Why do you need me? Because, he said. The room went colder. The torch chains rattled once. Somewhere in the archive, a deep, low sound like a sigh. Your afterlife. Archive will do. I did not like the phrase, what the archive will do. It reaches further, he said. Each call thins the boundary between worlds, between stories, between death and what comes after. Okay, I said, and my role in this disaster movie. You will see it, Vlad said. You will walk your world as it changes, and you will write. Write what? His gaze sharpened. The Chronicle, I laughed. It wasn't a happy laugh. You're telling me, I said slowly, that I'm supposed to write your cursed book, the same freaking nightmare journal that haunted me, pulled me in here, and tried to hand me over to a cosmic eyeball. That book, yes, that is a terrible idea. You are chosen. Stop saying that like it's a compliment. Vlad stepped closer, his eyes burning faintly red in the low light. You resist, he observed. Yeah, it's called survival instinct. You joke. It's that or cry. Something shifted in his expression, just a flicker, but I caught it. He wasn't used to this kind of backtalk, not from witnesses, not from anyone. Others bent quickly, he said. You do not. Others didn't grow up with student loans and late-stage capitalism, I said. We're built different. He didn't respond to that. Instead, he raised one pale hand. The space between us rippled. The Chronicle appeared in his palm. It hadn't been there a second ago. He held it out to me. Take it, he said. I stared at it like it might bite. If I take that, what happens? You begin. Begin what? He paused, then said very simply, the end. I stared from him to the book and back again. You're really bad at pep talks, you know that? I said. Still my hand moved toward the Chronicle. The leather cover pulsed beneath my fingers. Warm, alive. Familiar in the worst way. The moment I touched it, the hall changed. The shelves blurred. The torches dimmed. The stone under my feet hummed like a heartbeat. And then everything around me melted away, leaving only me, Vlad, and the book floating between us in a pool of shadow. What is this? I whispered. The binding, he said. Can I unsubscribe? No, didn't think so. The Chronicle opened on its own, but this time there were no pre-written words, no bloody ink, no frantic handwriting from centuries ago, just one blank page, and then a pen, black, sharp, dripping shadows formed in my hand. I didn't decide to move it. It moved anyway. My fingers tightened around it as if something else were steering them. The nib touched the page, and in letters that were partly mine and partly not, I began to write. I woke up on my porch, thinking the worst was over. The pen scratched across the parchment. I tried to stop. I couldn't. The story kept coming, pouring through my hand from somewhere deeper, somewhere beyond. When the sky opened, I wrote, I learned the truth. The archive doesn't just keep stories, it rewrites them. The ink bled. The Chronicle pulsed. Vlad watched, silent and still, as I realized the worst part of all. I wasn't just reading the horror anymore. I was helping write it. I didn't choose the next sentence. It chose me. The ink tugged my hand again, sharp and impatient, like the story itself was tapping its foot, waiting for me to catch up. I gritted my teeth, trying to pull back, but it was like wrestling a seatbelt during a panic attack, useless and mildly humiliating. I don't want to write this, I said through clenched teeth. You must, Vlad answered. Oh, wonderful. Love the encouragement. Really builds morale. The shadows around us shifted, curling like smoke underwater. The blank pages rippled outward into the air, forming a circle around us, pages floating like orbiting moons made of paper and dread. More words burned themselves into the next blank sheet. The witness writes what is seen, and what is about to be seen. My stomach dropped. I don't want to see anything. That is not yours to choose, Vlad said quietly. Well, maybe it should be, I snapped. Ever think of that? Maybe the cosmic horror bureaucracy could use some democratic reform. The shadows around us stilled, as if the archive itself paused at my outburst. Vlad stared at me with an expression I couldn't read, somewhere between curiosity and mild annoyance. He was a man used to obedience, not sarcasm. You fight what cannot be fought, he said eventually. I'm American, I replied. We fight everything, even things we absolutely shouldn't. A flicker of something dangerously close to amusement, passed across his eyes. But just as quickly the shadows tightened, the chronicle shook. New words carved themselves violently onto a page behind me. The witness must see. No, I whispered. No, 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 what does that mean? Vlad. VLAD. He looked up, not at me, at something behind me. Do not turn, he said. Naturally, I turned immediately, and immediately regretted all of my life choices. A shape formed behind me, taller than any human, twisted, stretched, its body made of tangled paper and ink. Pages peeled off its limbs and flapped like wings. Its face was a spiraled tangle of words, jumbled sentences rotating like a vortex. Every step it took left smears of ink on the stone floor. What is that? I whispered. Vlad didn't answer right away. When he finally spoke, he sounded like someone describing a natural disaster. A draft, I squeaked. Like a rough draft, like an early version of a thing, his jaw tightened. It is what happens to unfinished chronicle stories. They attempt to complete themselves. The draft creature twisted toward me, its spiraled text face tightening, letters rearranging into something hunting for meaning. Then it spoke. Not with a mouth, its entire body spoke. Hundreds of overlapping voices layered like static and whispering wind. The witness must see. No, I murmured. Absolutely not. Hard pass. The draft shuddered, arms extending toward me, endless arms, too many elbows, too many pages. I said no, I yelled, taking a step back. Vlad moved in front of me instantly, faster than any human should move. This is not your claim, he told the creature. The draft paused, then turned its spiraled head toward him. The witness has not yet written the future. Ink dripped from its fingertips like black rain. Vlad's voice lowered, darkened. You overreach. Return. The pages on the creature's arms fluttered violently as if in agitation. It didn't bow. It didn't retreat. Instead, it angled its warped head toward me again. The archive shows. The shadows around me surged. Vlad, I said. He grabbed my arm hard. Close your eyes. I don't think that's going to help. Close THEM. I did. The world exploded, not literally, not physically. But inside my mind, something cracked open like a rotten egg full of lightning. Images poured in. Too many images. A city skyline swallowed by darkness. A mountain splitting open like a wound. Shadows crawling across highways like living oil. A burning sky. A torn moon. Doors, thousands of doors opening into nothingness. Eyes watching from the clouds. Hands reaching from mirrors. And Vlad standing at the center of it all, cloak whipping in a storm that didn't exist yet. Then something else. Something worse. I saw myself. Older. Hollow-eyed. Standing in the center of a torn-apart street, chronicle in one hand, pen dripping black ink in the other. But the worst part, I wasn't alone. Something stood behind me, something enormous, something wearing my shape, but stretched taller, thinner, like a paper cutout pulled too hard. Its face was a blank page. I screamed, and the vision shattered. I stumbled forward, gasping, hands shaking violently. Vlad grabbed my shoulders to steady me. Not gently, but firmly, like anchoring someone who was about to fall off the world. I blinked hard, trying to focus. The draft creature was gone. The shadows calmed. The floating pages drifted back down like feathers and slid silently into the chronicle. I swallowed hard. What was that? What did it show me? Vlad didn't answer at first. When he did, his voice was low, heavy. The future. No, I whispered. No, that wasn't real. That couldn't be real. It is a future, he said. One the archive may choose. I don't want that future. That is why you must write, he said. To change it. I stared at him, heart pounding like frantic fists against a locked door. You want me to rewrite reality? No, he said simply. You must finish the chronicle before something else does. I stared down at the pen in my hand, at the blank page waiting for the next sentence. It uses witnesses, I whispered. Doesn't it? The archive, it uses us. Yes, and if I don't write what it wants, then the drafts will come again, he said. And next time, I may not be able to stop them. I looked back at the page, at the ink dripping from my pen, at the shadows crowding around the edges of the chronicle. I wasn't just inside the story anymore. I was writing the next chapter. Vlad, I said softly, I'm scared. He met my eyes. You should be, not comforting, but honest. I took a breath, and the pen moved again. Across the page, my hand wrote, the future is not fixed, but something is coming, and I have no idea if we can survive it. The ink pulsed. The chronicle hummed. Vlad watched me write the next sentence. But the archive is awake now, and it's not going back to sleep. The chronicle thrummed under my hand like a living thing, like something caged that had just remembered it had teeth. The ink settled slowly on the page, absorbing into the parchment like it was sinking into skin. I let the pen drop. It didn't fall. It hung in the air for a moment, suspended over the page, then slowly dissolved into a curl of black smoke and sank into the book's spine. Okay, I said shakily. Hate that, hated all of that. The darkness around us softened. The shelves and torches faded back into existence, the stone floor solidifying under my feet. We were back in the huge central hall of the archive, like the last few minutes had been some kind of private editing room for nightmares. A few of the other witnesses were still there, watching from between the shelves. Their outlines were faint, like they were only half present. One of them, the guy with the Cleveland ROCKS hoodie, gave me a look that said, yeah, it sucks. Welcome to the club. I tried to steady my breathing. So what, I just keep doing this? The thing where I write terrifying prophecy fanfic for a death library. For now, Vlad said. For now, that's supposed to be the comforting part. He ignored that. Classic. The woman in the torn dress stepped forward again. Up close I could see her eyes more clearly. They glowed with a faint gray light like there was fog trapped behind them. He made you start, she asked, nodding at the chronicle. I mean, made is a strong word, I said. But yes, with coercion and cosmic peer pressure. You felt it, didn't you, she said. When the draft showed you the possible future, I shuddered. Yeah, I'm trying not to think about the part where I was taller and blank-faced, like a cursed yoga instructor. That wasn't you, she said softly. Not exactly. That's what happens when the archive writes without you, when it uses you. Oh good, I said. There's a worse version of me. Fantastic. Hoodie guy leaned against a shelf, which rattled like it hated being used as furniture. You're lucky, he said. Most of us never even see the drafts. By the time the archive starts finishing our stories for us, it's already too late. I stared at him. Wait, too late for what? What happens? All at once, no one would look at me. The woman's outline flickered. We stop being witnesses, she said, and start being content. My brain filled that in, slowly, horribly. You mean you become stories, I whispered. She nodded once. Some of the books you see here, hoodie guy added quietly. Those are us, the ones who didn't get away fast enough, or didn't fight hard enough, or trusted the wrong thing. I glanced at Vlad. He didn't flinch, didn't deny it, just met my gaze with those cold, deep, predatory eyes. Eyes that had watched cities fall and stories end. Eyes that felt up close like standing on the edge of a cliff at night. You let that happen, I asked him. You just stand here and let people get turned into additions. It is not my archive, he said. I am bound to it, as you are. That's not an answer. It is the only one I have. The The torches along the walls guttered a little, as if the archive didn't like this conversation. I folded my arms. What about your story, your chronicle? You said it's not finished. Are you trying to stop this? Or are you just making sure your own book gets the deluxe treatment? The witnesses stiffened. You could feel it in the air. A kind of silent, collective, oh no, you did not just say that. Vlad took one slow step toward me. Up close, every inch of him was wrong in a way that was hard to articulate. He looked human but too still, too precise. His skin too pale, like stone that remembered being flesh. Those eyes, deep red circling black pupils that didn't quite feel like they were looking at me, but threw me to something behind my ribs. In my life, he said quietly, I was king, warrior, executioner, monster to some. His gaze darkened, the red deepening like coals stirred in a dying fire. In death, I am none of those things, he went on. I am a page, a chapter, a piece in something greater. That doesn't answer my question, I pushed. Are you helping the archive, or using it, or trying to fight it? Because if I'm going to be your haunted USB drive, I'd like some clarity. For the first time since I'd met him, his expression actually changed more than a millimeter. His jaw tightened, his eyes narrowed, not in anger, but in something like conflict. I was made to serve its story, he said slowly, but I do not have to like the ending. The woman in the dress stiffened. Hoodie guy straightened. Even the chains on the books gave a faint, questioning rattle. What does that mean? I asked. It means, Vlad said quietly, I am not the only one bound to the archive who remembers what disobedience feels like. The words hung in the air like a dropped match in a room full of gasoline. Okay, I said, swallowing. So you don't want the ending it's pushing toward. I get that. You saw whatever I saw and went, no thanks, sane. His gaze fixed on me with unnerving intensity. You saw only a fragment, enough to frighten you, not enough to understand. That's my whole life in a sentence. He stepped closer, and I had that same uncomfortable sensation that he was measuring me, my fear, my limits, my breaking point. You walk in two worlds, he said. You feel the call, but you can still move in your own streets, touch your own walls, you can see the changes as they come. You're saying I'm recon, I said slowly, like field reporting. For the apocalypse, the archive reads your world, he said, but it does not know how you feel it. That is what you write. That is how stories shift. I looked down at the chronicle. Its leather cover seemed darker now, veins of shadow pulsing faintly along the edges, like it had started absorbing some of the archive's night. And if I don't write? I asked quietly. Vlad's eyes went dead still. Then the archive will write through you, and you will become what you saw. The blank-faced version of myself from the vision flickered in the back of my mind. My throat went dry. The woman in the dress took a step closer, her outline flickering. You don't have to trust him, she said, jerking her chin toward Vlad. None of us do, but you do have to decide. Decide what? Whether you're going to be part of the story, Hoodie Guy said, or just another one of its books. I hated how quiet it had gotten. I hated how much everyone was looking at me, like I was a new character they were all waiting for the author to ruin. I exhaled slowly. Okay, let's say, for the sake of my rapidly collapsing sanity, that I agree to write, to witness. Then what? I just go home, shop for groceries, hang out at Target while the sky opens and I take notes. Yes, Vlad said. I blinked. That was sarcasm. I know, he replied. It is still what you must do. God, I muttered. You're like an HR meeting that bites. Something in the ceiling above us groaned, stone shifting, deep and distant. A low wind moved through the hall, though there were no visible openings. The witnesses around us flickered more, growing pale like they were fading out. The call is loosening, the woman said. You're being pushed back. Pushed where? I asked. Home, Vlad said. For now. The for now did some heavy lifting. I clutched the chronicle tighter. And if I just don't open it, if I hide it, lock it in a safe, drop it in the ocean, you will still feel it, he said. In your dreams, in the corners of your vision. The archive does not need doors made of wood. I hated how logical that sounded. The floor under my feet tingled. The air thinned like pressure dropping before a storm. Is there anything I should know before I go back? I asked quickly. Rules, warnings, safety tips, a cursed pamphlet, Vlad considered. When you see something that does not belong, he said, do not deny it, witness it, write it. That's it, I said. No, don't accept gifts from spectral door-to-door salesmen, or don't look directly into eldritch eyes on Mondays. His own eyes flared faintly red. And he added, do not trust everything that calls itself a story. That's very vague and unhelpful. That is because it is true. The stone beneath me blurred. The shelves stretched into streaks of shadow. The witnesses faded, their faces softening into smudges of light and darkness. I felt myself falling upward. The last thing I saw was Vlad's face, still pale, those crimson-ringed eyes locked on mine. There was something in them now I hadn't noticed before. Not pity, not kindness, but the faintest glimmer of something like investment. As if, for the first time in a very long time, he wasn't entirely sure how this story was going to end. Then the archive vanished, and my living room slammed back into place around me like reality had been dropped from a great height. The impact rattled my teeth. 1 second I was standing in a cosmic library of doom. The next I was crashing directly onto my living room rug like someone had unplugged me from reality and tossed me back through the wall socket. The lights flickered, the house groaned. My lamp toppled over like it too was exhausted by my life choices. I rolled onto my back and stared at the ceiling, panting. "Kay," I whispered to no one. "We're back, we're home. We're probably not dead. Yet, great job, team." The Chronicle landed beside me with a soft thud. I scooted away from it like it was a live grenade. "No," I told it. "You stay over there, I need a minute, maybe 7, maybe 1,000. The book lay perfectly still, too still, because books are not supposed to subtly inhale, but I swear this one did. A soft creak echoed somewhere inside the house. I froze. "Hello," I called cautiously. "If you're a ghost, monster, tax auditor, or cosmic horror, please announce yourself. If you're a normal person, ignore everything I just said." Silence. Then drip, drip, drip. I sat up straight. "Nope, not again, no dripping. Dripping is archive ambience, and I do not want that in my home." I followed the sound into the hallway, heart thumping. It led me toward the bathroom. The overhead light flickered. Slowly, I reached for the doorknob. My hand shook. I pushed the door open. The sink faucet was dripping, just the faucet. I exhaled so hard I almost passed out. Thank God. I turned the faucet handle. The dripping stopped. I stared at myself in the mirror and whispered, "Relax. You're imagining things, you're back, it's fine." The lights flickered again. My reflection didn't. I froze in place. "Hey," I whispered to my reflection. "Do the thing, you know, move when I move." It didn't. It just stared back at me with a too wide smile slowly stretching across its face. I stumbled backward, tripping into the hallway. "Okay, nope, 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 nope. We are not doing mirror me again." My reflection mouthed something silently. 3 words. "Write it down." My skin crawled. I slammed the bathroom door. "Okay," I said to myself, breathing fast. "Rule number 1, if a haunted version of me gives instructions, ignore THEM. That's self-care." I returned to the living room, planning to sit on the couch and pretend my life wasn't crumbling like a stale cracker. Except someone was sitting on the couch. A shadow, humanoid, long limbs, head tilted the wrong way. Completely still, I froze mid-step. "Hello?" The figure didn't respond. I squinted. My eyes adjusted to the low light and my heart sank. It wasn't a monster. It was my coat. My coat draped over a pillow in a vaguely human shape. "Oh my God," I groaned. "I am going to have to bubble wrap my entire house." I collapsed onto the couch, exhausted. That's when the Chronicle fluttered open, by itself. The pages rustled like a sigh, settling on a blank spread. The pen, which I had definitely not seen since it evaporated, materialized on the cushion beside me with a faint hiss of ink. I pushed it away like it was a spider. "No, we're not doing this right now. I need food, and water, and sleep, and therapy." The pen rolled back toward me, like it had heard me, like it disagreed. "You don't control me," I said quietly. "I am not writing more tonight." Silence. Then a line of fresh ink slashed itself onto the page. The witness does not rest. I threw my hands up. Well, the witness is tired. Another line wrote itself. The archive does not wait. I stared at the page. The page stared back. My house creaked. Outside, the street looked normal, bright porch lights, cars parked neatly, a neighbor walking a dog. Totally ordinary suburban calm, which somehow made it worse. I grabbed the pen. Fine, I muttered. I'll write one sentence, but that's it. Then I'm going to bed. The pen warmed in my hand. The page pulsed. I took a deep breath and wrote, something followed me back from the archive. The ink glowed faintly, then faded. I waited. Nothing happened. See, I said. Easy, one sentence. Done. I shut the chronicle. I tossed it onto the coffee table. I stood up. And then knock, knock, knock. At my front door. Slow, deliberate. Like someone was imitating a human knock without fully understanding how. I froze. No, I whispered. Knock, knock, knock. The knocking came again. Harder, my phone buzzed. A text dot from an unknown number. I opened it with shaking hands. It said, "You saw it." Then another, "Now it wants to see you." I swallowed hard. "See me?" The knock came one more time. But the voice came from inside the house, right behind me. "Whitney's." I spun around, and something stood there in the corner of the room, tall, blurred, shifting like smoke wrapped in skin. A shape I had seen before. In the vision the draft forced into my mind. The tall, wrong, blank-faced version of me. It wasn't blank now. Words were forming across its face, ink spelling out fresh text. And as it leaned closer, I read the words, "You left something unwritten." The moment I finished writing, the chronicle went still, completely still, like a wild animal that suddenly heard a sound it didn't recognize. My living room was so quiet I could hear the compressor in my fridge hum, which felt incredibly insulting. How was my kitchen appliance more relaxed than I was? I closed the book gently, half expecting it to burst into flames or leap off the table or transform into a portal to hell. Instead, it just sat there, calm, waiting. "No sudden punishment," I whispered. "That's either very good or horrifying." I stood up, stretched my cramped shoulders, and began pacing. My brain was doing that thing where it tried to think about everything at once, and then crashed into itself like a software update gone wrong. A creature that looked like me, but taller and creepier, told me to bend the story. The chronicle seemed unsure. The archive hesitated. Vlad wanted me to write, but maybe not this way. And I had just declared war on a cosmic library. A brilliant plan, really. My phone buzzed. For a horrifying second, I thought it would be the archive texting me again, like, "Hey, what are you doing? Stop that." But no. It was a notification from my DoorDash app. "Your food is arriving. 3 minutes." I blinked. Right. I had ordered dinner before being yanked into the death library dimension. Some poor delivery driver was about to walk up to my house, where a cosmic story war had just broken out. "Oh crap," I said. I ran to the window. The street looked normal again. Streetlights glowing, houses quiet, sprinklers running in someone's lawn like a soothing suburban soundtrack. Then I saw a bike approaching. Oh no, the DoorDash guy. He pedaled up my driveway, humming, completely unaware the universe had become unstable in my living room. I sprinted to the door, unlocked it, and stepped outside fast, forcing a smile like everything was totally normal and not crawling with lore monsters. "Hey," I called out, waving like a lunatic. "Thank you. You can just leave it. Actually, I'll grab it, thanks." The guy hopped off his bike, holding my bag of tacos. "No problem, dude. Weird lighting in your house, by the way, your bulb's flickering." I froze. Behind me, through the open doorway, the lights were indeed flickering, rapidly, like Morse code for run. "Oh yeah," I said quickly, "just haunted wiring, I mean old wiring." He laughed. "Haunted wiring. Nice one." He handed me the bag, then he frowned. "You okay, man?" I blinked at him. "Do I look not okay?" He tilted his head. "You look like you saw a ghost." I forced a smile. Nope, just normal household problems, you know, drafts, bad insulation, occasional cosmic entities." He blinked. "What was that last one?" "Nothing, thanks, huge tip, leave immediately." He slowly backed up toward his bike. All right, have a good night. You too, I shut the door. Run away from him, why property now? I locked the door. Leaned against it, exhaled. For once, I whispered, thank God for tacos. But the peace lasted approximately 5 seconds, because as I walked back toward the coffee table, bag of tacos in one hand, the Chronicle in the other, someone knocked. Not the front door, the window, soft, polite, 2 taps. I froze. No, I whispered. We are not doing this right now, I just got food. The tapping came again. I set the taco bag down carefully, very carefully, and approached the window. A shape stood outside, tall, thin, absolutely not human. Oh, come on, I groaned. It's dinner time, I'm off the clock. The shape leaned closer. Moonlight revealed a long, narrow face with hollow eyes and a mouth stitched shut with thin black cords. Its fingers drummed lightly against the glass, each tap producing a faint ink stain. It wasn't Vlad. It wasn't the draft. It wasn't the blank-faced creature. This was something new. It raised one hand slowly and pressed a folded piece of parchment against the window. A message. From the other side, I shook my head. No messages through the window. That's a boundary violation. The creature tilted its head like a confused vulture. I opened the window a crack, because curiosity is the worst personality trait, and grabbed the parchment. The creature didn't try to force the window further. It just stared at me with those dark, sunken eyes. Then it slowly backed away into the yard until it dissolved into the shadows completely. I held the parchment at arm's length like it might explode. Okay, I muttered. Let's see what fresh nightmare this is. I unfolded it. The handwriting was elegant, sharp, old. You are not the only one writing. I blinked. What does that mean? Below it, more ink appeared, dripping onto the paper as I watched. Someone has begun a counter-chronicle. Oh, this is great, I said aloud. Fanfiction beef, cosmic author wars, perfect. I turned the note over. At the bottom was a signature. Not a name, just a symbol, a circle, broken in 4 places. Twisted slightly like something had bitten it. I didn't recognize it, but I felt it. A cold shiver down my spine, a tug in my sternum, like the archive itself shuddered. I lowered the note. Okay, I whispered. Someone else is writing. Someone other than me. And then a thought hit me. What if they're writing the bad version? The one with burning skies and blank-faced future me. My stomach churned. I hurried back to the coffee table, practically threw the parchment aside and grabbed the Chronicle. I opened it. Blank page, pen waiting. But before I wrote anything, the book wrote something itself. Just one sentence, small and shaky. You are not alone in this story. I sat down hard. Is that supposed to be comforting? I whispered. Because I'm terrified, I am very terrified. But another thought came. If someone else was writing, someone who wasn't the archive, someone opposing it, maybe I wasn't the only one trying to break the ending. I didn't know if that was a good thing. Could be an ally, could be a rival, could be another monster. The Chronicle didn't clarify. It only whispered in tiny letters. Find the other writer, I swallowed. How? I asked. The book flipped to a new page, ink spread across it like a map forming. The outline of my town appeared. Then a symbol appeared on one street, the same circle with Byte's symbol from the parchment. Oh, you've got to be kidding me, I said. The other writer lives near me. The map pulsed once, confirming, great, just great. I wasn't just writing against the archive. I was writing against someone in my own world. I grabbed my jacket. Tacos later, I muttered. Story war now. I hesitated, hand on the doorknob. Please don't be a monster, I said to the empty room. Please don't be a monster. I stepped outside. The night air felt heavier, sharper, like the world itself was watching me. In the distance at the end of the street, a single porch light flickered, exactly where the map had marked. All right, I whispered. Time to find the other writer. The night felt wrong, not horror movie wrong. Not there's a murderer behind the bushes wrong. More like the air had a second weight to it. An extra gravity, like walking through a world that had begun thinking about becoming something else. Streetlights buzzed overhead. One flickered. That one, the one the Chronicle's map pointed to. Perfect, I muttered. Love that for me. Nothing says safe evening stroll like following the glowing dot to a cursed house. The pavement under my sneakers felt normal enough, still warm from the afternoon sun, but each step seemed quieter than it should have been, like the sound of my footsteps was being swallowed. No cars passed, no dogs barked, no neighbor peeked out from behind blinds. The whole street held its breath. The Chronicle, tucked under my arm, felt heavier the closer I got to that flickering porch light, as if the book itself didn't want to be here. "Too bad," I whispered. "You started this, you're coming with." Halfway down the street I paused. A shadow crossed the road behind me. Slow, dragging, I spun around, nothing. "Okay," I said out loud, "if that was a raccoon, I will literally buy it a steak dinner." "It is still here." I froze, the air in the room shifted. A floorboard creaked behind me. Very softly, a breath touched the back of my neck. I turned, slowly terrified, and saw nothing, just darkness. But then a whisper right beside my ear. "Welcome." I spun again. And there, finally, someone stood in the shadows between two shelves, a figure, human-sized, hunched, still. I lifted my phone's flashlight. The beam illuminated a man. Pale, thin, sunken eyes, clothes that looked like he hadn't left the house in weeks. He blinked at the light like it hurt. "Are you?" I started. "The other writer," he tilted his head. "Not quite human, not quite wrong, but close." He took a step forward. His face slipped into the light. His eyes were completely white. No pupils, no irises. Just blank milky whiteness. My breath caught. "What happened to you?" I whispered. His voice was low, cracked, like paper tearing. "I wrote ahead," he rasped. I swallowed. "Wrote ahead of what?" He smiled weakly. Of all the smiles I'd seen lately, Vlad's, the creatures, the mirror me version, this one was the worst, because it was tired, sad, and resigned. "I tried to outrun the archive," he said, "to finish the story before it could take me." My phone light flickered. The shadows behind him rippled. "And?" I whispered. He stepped fully into the light, and I saw the black ink spiderwebbing across his skin veins replaced by text, his arms covered in half-written sentences, his throat marked with half-formed chapters. "And now," he said, "I am becoming my own draft." His jaw trembled. His eyes rolled upward, blank white, and ink trickled from the corners like tears. He reached toward me. "Help me," he begged, voice breaking. "You're the last witness who can." The darkness convulsed around him, and something enormous stirred behind the bookshelf's. Help is such a simple word. It covers everything from "hold this bag while I tie my shoe" to "please save me from becoming a walking first draft of the apocalypse." This was definitely the second kind. The other writer staggered toward me, ink pulsing under his skin like something was crawling just beneath the surface. The words on his arm shifted, rearranging themselves in real time, sentences forming and dissolving, never settling. "I thought," he said, voice shaking, "if I moved faster than the archive, if I finished the story before it could, it wouldn't be able to change me." "And how'd that go?" I asked, because sarcasm is the only thing standing between me and total shutdown. He let out a broken laugh. "How do you think?" Behind him, something huge adjusted its weight. Bookshelf wood creaked. A deep, slow breath vibrated through the room like the house itself had lungs. I took a step back. "Okay, let's talk about that sound. That feels important." He glanced over his shoulder, flinching as if whatever was back there could hear his thoughts. "It's closer now. Since I started writing, it likes unfinished things." "Neat," I said. "I'm extremely unfinished as a person, so that's good to know." He blinked his blank white eyes, looking in my direction without exactly focusing. "You have it, don't you?" he whispered. "The Chronicle." I shifted the book under my arm. "Yeah, we're in a very toxic relationship." His breathing quickened. "It chose you. I wasn't chosen like that. I found fragments, lesser books, shards. I made my own chronicle. I tried to write around it." "Wait," I said. "Your notebook, this one." I gestured to the gray counter chronicle on the desk. "You built your own version of the archive." "Imitated," he corrected. "Badly, apparently." The ink at his throat crawled upward, climbing his jaw. Letters formed along his cheekbone. "Failed draft." I swallowed. "The archive did that to you?" He shook his head slowly. "No, this is what happens when you try to be your own archive and lose. Something scraped along the ceiling above us, slow and deliberate, like claws testing wood. Dust drifted down. I whispered, "What did you summon?" He smiled again, sad and humorless. "Not summon, attract. The archive noticed my little rebellion. It sent an editor." "An editor," I repeated. "Like the worst possible kind of editor, I'm guessing. Not the let's improve your pacing kind." His gaze sharpened, or whatever the blind version of that is. "You felt it too," he said. "Haven't you? The pressure, the thing watching when you write, the sense that something reads over your shoulder." I thought about the archive's hesitation, the giant eye in the sky, the draft, the tall, blank-faced version of me, the chronicle pulsing when I pushed back. "Yeah," I admitted, "I've felt it. It wants your story," he said. "Whole, clean, obedient. It hates when we improvise." A huge, slow exhale rolled through the house again. The books on the shelves rustled as if something had brushed past all of them at once. A few fell, hitting the floor with dull thuds. "That's your editor," I whispered. His fingers trembled. "It's almost here." The ink veins on his hands thickened, traveling to his fingertips like gloves made of text. His fingernails darkened, becoming sharp little nibs. I took another step back. "Okay," I said carefully, "when you said help me, what exactly did you have in mind? You want me to unwrite you, redirect you, delete your browser history?" He winced as if the ink under his skin had just tightened like barbed wire. "I can't hold it back much longer. The draft is using me now. I hear it every time I close my eyes. It wants to finish." "Finish what?" I asked. "Your story," he whispered. "Mine was never big enough. But you're bound to a core chronicle. Vlad's, one of the primary branches." My stomach twisted. I did not agree to be a major plotline. His lips cracked into something like a grin. "No one does." Its scissor hand trembled, stuck mid-snipping gesture like someone had hit pause. The writer collapsed sideways, gasping, the text on his body flickering like a glitching screen. Holy shit. It worked. Sort of, for now. The editor's static face crackled violently, unreadable fury radiating from it. The sense of pressure in the room doubled, tripled, like the whole house was being crushed in a fist. Lines of red, not ink, not blood, something worse, began scribbling themselves through the air around me. I kept writing. The editor tried to resume its cut, but the story had already branched. There was now a version where the writer survived long enough to choose. The ink on the writer's skin brightened. He coughed, voice suddenly back. He rasped. "I can feel," the editor twitched again, half bound by my words, half breaking through them. The chronicle under my other hand pulsed like a heartbeat beside the counter-chronicle, ink pouring across its pages too, echoing, amplifying. The two books hummed in sync. The entire reality of the room shook. The editor took one step toward me, forcing its way through the constraints. Its scissors split into more scissors, fractal blades blooming in impossible directions. It was going to cut around my revision. "And that," I gasped, pen still moving, "is why we write faster." My hand flew. But the editor could not proceed because for the first time, a witness in a failed draft chose the same ending. The writer's hand shot out, gripped my wrist, not to stop me, to steady me. Ink pooled in his eyes, then receded, some of the whiteness retreating. We locked eyes. Well, I locked eyes with where his eyes should be. "Keep going," he whispered. The editor's form flickered. A piece of its arm vanished, as if the story had just decided it didn't need that part. Its static face roared without sound. The house began to crack, and I realized something terrifying. I could fight it, but I might bring the whole place down if I did. Cracks spread across the ceiling like lightning veins. The books shook violently on the shelves, some falling and bursting into ash midair. The whole house groaned, bending inward, as if the editor's presence was gravity and the walls were tired of resisting. The editor took another step toward us, or half a step, like reality couldn't decide whether it wanted the thing moving or frozen. Its limbs glitched, jittering between frames like a corrupted video file. The chronicle hummed in my hand, a deep vibration that rattled my teeth. The counter-chronicle shook even more violently, ink crawling along the page in frantic directions I didn't command. The writer stumbled to his feet, gripping the desk for support. He looked worse, more ink than man now, but alive. Barely. "How long?" he gasped. "Can you hold it?" "Not long," I yelled, scribbling furiously. "Do I look like someone who can outwrite a cosmic proofreader?" The editor's scissors multiplied again, branching out in fractal patterns, forming a tree of blades. They buzzed like a swarm of hornets made of metal. Its static face tilted. The air split with silent pressure. A new line carved itself into the empty air above it. "Oh hell no," I spat. "You don't get overrides. This isn't Microsoft Word." The Chronicle's pages whipped violently, slamming open to a blank spread as if inviting me to write faster. "Write," the writer croaked beside me. "You have to write." "I am writing," I barked, sweat dripping into my eyes. "This is the fastest I've ever written anything in my life. Not even college plagiarism panic writing compares to this." The editor raised one of its many scissor hands, pointed directly at the writer. "No," I shouted, shoving the pen to the page. But the editor faltered, because the witness had already named a different target. The editor paused. Its static face vibrated. Its arms froze mid-motion. The writer blinked, ink retreating slightly. "You changed its target," he rasped, disbelieving. "I don't know," I yelled. "I just panic write and hope the universe cooperates." The editor turned toward me. The static face warped. The scissors opened. "Ah, great, perfect. Amazing. This went exactly how I didn't want it to," I groaned. The writer grabbed my sleeve. "It's focusing on you now. Use that." "Use what?" I said. "My crippling anxiety. My $7.99 writer's notebook from Walmart." "You're chosen," he insisted. "You're bound to a core chronicle. It listens to you in a way lesser texts can't." "Oh yeah. Tell that to the giant red eye that tried to beam me out of existence." A deep tremor shook the house. The editor took a full step now. No glitching, no hesitation. It moved with purpose. The scissors at the end of its limb snapped open and shut in rapid, eager bites. "Right," the writer screamed. I wrote. My hand flew. The ink spilled. But the witness understood something the editor didn't. Stories are not obedient. Stories are wild. The editor jerked. Its limbs froze. The entire room dimmed like someone turned down the world's brightness setting. The counter-chronicle rippled under my hand, paragraphs shifting, rearranging. The writer gasped as the ink on his skin reversed direction, pulling back, not forward. The editor twisted violently, trying to break the constraint. The scissors stopped mid-snap. I wrote faster. And wild stories don't wait for permission. Something cracked. Not the house, not the shelves, not the floor. The editor's silhouette. A jagged line ran down its torso like a draft splitting down the spine when paper tears too quickly. The static face sputtered. Redacted bars flickered. Its entire shape rippled. "It's weakening," the writer wheezed. "Push it further." "How?" I said. "Give me dialogue, something cool to say, anything." "Write it wrong," he yelled. "Write the creature earlier, the blank-faced almost me. It told me that, write it wrong." I raised the pen. The editor raised every scissor it had. "Okay, you cosmic tax auditor," I snarled. "Let's try something extremely stupid." And I wrote. The editor realized too late that it was no longer the one editing the story. The editor spasmed. Every scissor hand opened at once. It leaned back as if pushed by invisible wind. The static face dissolved into a whirl of pixels. The ink at the edges of the room began to peel away, like old wallpaper. The writer sagged against the wall, breathing hard, ink receding from his arms visibly now. "You're doing it," he whispered. "You're rewriting the rules." "I'm doing something," I said. "But I might also be about to break dimensional physics." The editor's outline shattered, cracks spreading from its torso to its limbs. The scissor hands fell off one by one, collapsing like useless punctuation. Its shape collapsed inward, then exploded outward. A burst of black-red ink hit the walls. The house groaned like it had taken a punch to the soul. The floorboards rattled violently. And then silence. The editor was gone. The air cleared, the pressure eased. My heart hammered so loud it felt like the house could hear it. The writer dropped to his knees, exhausted. His eyes were still blank white, but the ink on his body had stopped crawling. Some of the words had faded. Some were gone completely. He touched his throat. "It's quieter," he whispered, "for the first time in weeks." I fell back against the desk, shaking. The counter-chronicle and chronicle pulsed weakly like tired heartbeats. "Okay," I gasped. "Okay, we made it. We fought a cosmic editor and didn't die. I deserve so many tacos for this." The writer looked at me, eyes unfocused but grateful. "You saved me." "Yeah," I said. "I do that sometimes. Mostly by accident." He let out a small laugh, weak, cracked, but real. "You're different from the others." "Others," I repeated. "How many witnesses have you met?" He didn't answer that. Instead, he leaned forward and grabbed my wrist. His touch was ice cold. "You need to leave," he said urgently. I blinked. "Sorry, what?" His ink-veined fingers tightened. "You need to leave now." The chronicle jerked violently in my hand. The counter-chronicle snapped shut. The house shuddered. "What's happening?" I asked, panic rising again. He looked toward the back of the room, toward the shadows that had gone unusually still. "It noticed," he whispered. "Who noticed?" He swallowed. "The archive." The walls rippled outward like a breathing lung. "Gio," he shouted. "If you stay, if it sees what you wrote." The floor split open beneath me. Ink rose like a tidal wave. I lunged for the door too late. The darkness swallowed me whole, and the last thing I heard was his voice. "Run from the story before it runs you." Falling through ink is nothing like falling through air. Air gives you wind in your face, stomach swooping, the vague hope that maybe you'll hit a trampoline. Ink is thicker, heavier. It folds around you. It doesn't feel like you're falling through something. It feels like you're being rewritten. Words brushed past my skin, actual words, full sentences, whole paragraphs, rushing by too fast to read. Some of them were in languages I didn't recognize. Some weren't in any language at all, just shapes that made my brain hurt if I looked at them directly. I tried to scream. Ink filled my mouth. It tasted like dust and iron and old regret. Then the downward motion stopped. Not gradually, just off. I hung there for a second, suspended in nothing. Then everything snapped back on at once. Sound, light, gravity. I slammed into something solid and flat, stone again. My back protested loudly. My brain chimed in with a migraine. I lay there, blinking up at a ceiling etched with words. They crawled slowly along the stone like ants, changing, rearranging, deleting, and rewriting themselves. Every so often, a sentence dissolved and another grew in its place. The archive, but not the hall I'd seen before. This place felt different. Higher, darker, the air denser, threaded with whispers that didn't sound like they were meant for anyone human. I sat up carefully. The ground under me was smooth black stone with faint lines running across it like a grid. Where the lines intersected, tiny symbols glowed, little circles, triangles, strange glyphs that hummed faintly when I looked at them. "Okay," I muttered. "New room, new nightmare, new layer of existential dread. Love the variety." A voice spoke from somewhere above me. "You have gone where few witnesses do." It was Vlad. It wasn't the draft. It wasn't the editor. This voice felt big, not loud, just big, like the room itself was talking. I scrambled to my feet and spun around. Shelves rose up around me in a circle. These were not like the ones in the main archive hall. They were taller, so tall I couldn't see the top. The books here weren't chained. They weren't even shelved properly. Some floated. Some were embedded halfway into the stone. One hovered upside down, spinning slowly with pages fanned out like a dead bat. In the middle of the circle, a shape hung in the air. Not solid. More like a cluster of shadows and words woven together into a knot. Sentences spiraled in and out of it, changing constantly. Eyes too many opened and closed inside the tangle. When they focused, they weren't looking at the stone or the shelves. They were looking at me. Let me guess, I said quietly. You're not customer service. The knot pulsed, swelling. Letters broke off and flew outward, rearranging midair into a phrase. You write against US. Then dissolved back into the mass. Yeah, I said. I've been told I'm difficult. Another flurry of letters drifted out, forming a new line. You are small. I snorted. Trust me, my anxiety tells me that all the time. The eyes inside the knot narrowed. It wasn't used to this, to banter, to being talked to like it was something that could be argued with. More words spilled out. You altered an editor. I folded my arms. Well, your editor was a jerk. Someone needed to give it a performance review. Ink hissed along the walls. The ceiling dimmed. The tiny glyphs on the floor brightened. You break process, the script wrote. You bend drafts. You invite corruption. That last word echoed, bouncing between the shelves. Yeah, I've been called worse, I said. Look, if you brought me here for a scolding, can we speed it up? I've had a long day. I fought a cosmic red line and saved a guy from becoming a walking manuscript. The knot of words twisted. For the first time, it didn't answer right away. The silence was worse than the text. Then slowly, a sentence emerged. You think you save. The quotation marks appeared around the word like little knives. I thought of the other writer, ink-veined, half-fatting, alive but changed. I didn't know how long he'd last. I think, I said carefully, I gave him a chance to choose something else. The knot convulsed. For a second, a dozen eyes opened at once. Choice is noise. The words came sharp and fast now, like blades. Stories require structure. Endings require order. You introduce error. I shrugged. I prefer the term creative freedom. The glyphs on the floor brightened further, their lines connecting until they formed a perfect circle around where I stood. A boundary. A cage. Cool, great. So what is this? I asked, trying to sound braver than I felt. Punishment? Lecture? PowerPoint presentation on why I should stop freelancing reality? We clarify, the archive wrote. We do not threaten. You are already marked. The knot shifted, and I felt something tug at my chest. Not physically, like gravity had found a new point to pull on. The chronicle in my hand vibrated violently, then ripped free, floating up in front of me like someone had yanked it on an invisible chain. Pages fluttered open. The knot's eyes fixed on it. The script changed. You carry a core branch. Images flashed across the open pages. Vlad impaling fields, burning fortresses, a throne made of fear. You are bound to a disobedient story. Yeah, he has issues, I said. The words sharpened. Together, you are a flaw. The chronicle's ink glowed faintly red, responding to something in that accusation. I watched it carefully. Funny, I said. Usually flaws are where things get interesting. Silence. Then, interesting is inefficient. I had to laugh then because honestly, that was the most evil spreadsheet sentence I had ever heard. You're a terrifying cosmic filing system, I said, and also you completely miss the point of stories. The knot stilled. Slowly, deliberately, a new phrase assembled. Define point. I blinked. I hadn't expected that, a question. You don't know, I asked. Words moved faster now, like a thought speeding up. STORIES organize experience. Store memory. Transmit pattern. I shook my head. That's not the point, that's function, utility. The point is what it means to the people living it. People, the archive echoed, like the word left a bad taste. People die. STORIES remain. Therefore stories matter more. I swallowed. Ask any person, see how they feel about that ranking. We stared at each other, me and the knot of sentient narrative bureaucracy. I knew I shouldn't push it. I pushed it anyway. Here, your problem, I said. You think stories exist for you, for your shelves, your order, your patterns, but stories aren't here to make you comfortable. The knot trembled. Text flared outward violently, forming jagged words that almost cut the air. Comfort is not objective. Coherence is. You don't get it, I insisted. Stories change people. People change stories, that's the deal. You can't have one without the other. The floor circle glowed brighter, hemming me in. You are unnecessary. The archive wrote, the witness is a lens, not an author. I pointed at the chronicle. Then explain that, I snapped. Explain why your precious core branch let me write in it. Explain why the world actually changed when I did. Silence again. The eyes inside the knot turned toward the book. The chronicle's pages fluttered, showing flashes from what I'd written. The first time the archive tried to claim my future, it forgot something very important. I am extremely stubborn. Ink pulsed along that line. The knot recoiled slightly. You should not have been able to write this. Yeah, I said, you keep saying things like that, shouldn't, can't, not allowed. And yet, I spread my hands. Here we are. Sentences burst out of the knot like sparks from a fire. External influence. CORRUPTED input. Draft interference. Or, I said quietly, you're not as in control of the story as you thought. That hit something deeper. The whole room dimmed, then brightened, like the archive had taken a deep, steadying breath. We have seen rebellion before. The words were slower now, heavy. Branches that refused their end. Witnesses who fought structure. What happened to them? I asked. The answer appeared one word at a time. They became warnings. Beneath that line, shelves around me shuddered. Some of the books on them glowed faintly, dozens, maybe hundreds. I could feel them watching. Locked rebellions. Veiled escapes. So you turned them into examples, I said softly. Look what happens when you try to break the story. You get filed away. Yes. And me. The knot didn't rush its answer. You are not yet an example. Then, you are an experiment. A chill went straight down my spine. Awesome, I muttered. Love being a beta test for narrative physics. You alter output, the archive wrote. You disrupt prediction. You attract unstable drafts. You bent an editor. I'm very talented, I said. Put that on my resume. The knot shifted, and I got the distinct sense that if it had a face, it would be glaring. If you continue, it wrote. We cannot guarantee any end. I looked at the chronicle, at my own handwriting, at the faint trembling of the stone under my feet, like the whole place was quietly anxious. Good, I said. The word stopped. Totally stopped. Even the ceiling paused. No text moved. Just for a heartbeat. Then, explain. I took a breath. And for the first time since this started, I didn't answer with sarcasm. If you guarantee the ending, I said, then nothing I do matters, not really. I'm just acting out a pre-written script, a puppet. I stepped as close to the edge of the glowing circle as I dared. I can't live like that, I said. I can't watch the world burn, watch people get turned into books, watch myself become the tall blank thing, knowing there's nothing I can do about it. I pointed at the nearest shelf. At that point, you might as well put me up there now. The knot of words pulsed slowly. You require uncertainty. Yeah, I said, we call it hope. The glyphs on the floor dimmed, just a little. Not gone, but less blinding. You are dangerous, the archive wrote. You are small, but you are dangerous. I let out a shaky laugh. I've been told that too. A final line traced itself in the air between us. Then write, and we will watch what a dangerous story does. The circle under my feet broke. The stone fell away. And once again I was falling, only this time I wasn't being dragged. I was being dropped, back toward my world, with the archive watching, and waiting to see if I really could bend its ending, a plan. The word hung in the air like smoke. Every witness in my living room looked at me, waiting, expectant, tense, hopeful, afraid. Like the moment just before lightning hits, all charge, no release. I looked around at them, at the teenager leaning against my bookshelf with ink-stained nails, at the old woman gripping her carved cane, at the man in the 1940s suit, loosening his tie like he was preparing for war, at the barefoot child clutching their stitch paper rabbit, at the soldier flickering between frames like he didn't fully belong to this dimension anymore, and at the first woman, the one who stepped through the thin veil and started all this. "You all want a plan?" I asked. The teenager muttered, "We were really hoping you'd say yes." The older woman chuckled. "He doesn't know he already made one." I blinked. "I did when?" "When you chose to right wrong," she said. "When you chose uncertainty." The first woman stepped closer. "The archive governs through predictable endings, through inevitability. If every witness writes the expected ending, the archive grows stronger. But you," she pointed at my chest, "introduced chaos." "That's not my intentional superpower," I said. "That's just my personality." A few of them actually laughed, briefly. But the room grew serious again. The child whispered, "We need to break the chronicle." I stiffened. No. No, we do not need to break the scary cosmic artifact that's literally tied to my bloodstream. The woman shook her head gently. "Not break it physically. Break the pattern it feeds. Bend the root story so the branches can follow." The soldier stepped forward, voice glitching. "The archive controls endings, so give it an ending it can't contain." The man in the suit added, "Every failed witness tried to change their own story." "Small scale," the teenager said. "Personal, emotional, self-contained." The older woman, "You're the first who wrote a fracture into a core." I rubbed my face. "Okay, so you want me to write something big, something that affects the archive on a fundamental level." They nodded. "And this won't kill me." They did not nod. The child whispered, "It will change you." "Great, love that." The living room dimmed slightly, not supernatural, just the overhead bulbs flickering. But something in the witnesses' faces shifted at the same time. They could feel it. A pressure, a presence. The archive watching through the thin walls. "Time is short," the first woman said quietly. "You were dropped back too quickly. It is evaluating you, and it will not remain curious for long." "So we need to act now?" I asked. "Yes." "Fine, then I'll write. But what do I write? I don't even know what the story is, let alone how to break it." The teenager crossed her arms. "Write what scares the archive." I gestured wildly. Everything scares the archive. Unpredictability scares it. Change scares it. Chaos scares it. Ambiguity scares it. The fact that I breathe scares it. "Exactly," the suit man said. "Lo." A beat of realization. "Lo." The older woman smiled, a tired, ancient smile. "You understand." "Barely," I said. "I think you severely overestimate my grasp of advanced cosmic narrative theory." The soldier stepped forward. "The archive expects endings." "So write a beginning," the woman said. I blinked. "What?" The witnesses leaned in. "It expects death," the teenager said. "So write birth," the old woman murmured. "It expects collapse," the man in the suit added. "So write growth," the child whispered. "It expects obedience," the soldier rasped. "So write disobedience," the first woman said. The chronicle flared, its cover warming against my palm. A blank page opened by itself. Waiting. But the witnesses weren't done. It expects despair, the first woman said softly, so you must write hope. I stared at her. At all of them. At the blank page glowing faintly like a waiting stage. I don't know if I can, I admitted. I've barely held myself together this whole time, and the future I saw, that wasn't hopeful. I was wrong, changed, like something wearing me like a puppet. The teenager stepped forward and jabbed my chest with a finger. Yeah, and you refused that. You wrote against it. You looked cosmic inevitability in the eye and said, "Nah, that's hope." The man in the suit nodded. Hope isn't softness, it's defiance. The child whispered, "Hope is a weapon." A heavy silence fell. Even the house seemed to lean in. The page in the chronicle brightened again. The pen appeared in my hand. I let out a shaky breath. "All right," I said. "Okay, you all want hope, you want a beginning, you want a crack in the foundation." I lifted the pen. The witnesses watched. The archive watched. The chronicle trembled like it knew this was a turning point. "Fine," I whispered. "Let's see what happens when the story starts instead of ends." And I wrote. Ink flooded the page, not violent, not chaotic, slow, deliberate, almost gentle. The story did not begin with fear. It began with a choice. The witnesses inhaled sharply. I felt something shift, very subtly, like a plate under the world tilting. I continued. A choice to stop predicting the ending. A choice to stop following the script. A choice to write something that had never existed in the archive before. The chronicle warmed. Its spine glowed faintly. The floor vibrated. A story that grows instead of collapses. A story that refuses to narrow. A story that widens, opening paths the archive cannot map. The lights flickered. A breeze moved through the house. But there were no open windows. That was the archive reacting. Pushing back. I wrote faster. A story that multiplies endings instead of choosing one. A story that branches in every direction. A story that becomes too vast for anyone to contain, not even the archive. The chronicle flared white hot. The first woman's voice trembled. "You're doing it." The man in the suit staggered back. I can feel it, something loosening. The teenager's eyes widened. This is insane. The soldier gritted his teeth as his flickering stabilized. It's working. The child squeezed their rabbit tight. It's scared. I wrote the final line. A story that does not end, because endings can be rewritten. The chronicle snapped shut like a heartbeat. A shockwave rippled through the room. Every witness gasped, bracing themselves as the air folded inward, thickened, then exploded outward with a soft, immense pressure like a silent thunderclap. The witnesses staggered. The lights blazed. The walls shook. Something cracked, not physically but in reality. Like a massive, invisible glass sheet splitting. When the shaking calmed, the witnesses stood taller, clearer, more present. Some of their ink scars had faded. The soldier's glitching slowed. The teenager's shadow deepened in a way that gave her weight. The old woman's cane symbols glowed. The first woman stepped closer, eyes alight with something fierce. "You did it," she whispered. "You changed the route." "I did something," I said, breathless. She shook her head. "No, you changed the entire archive." A chill went down my spine. "What does that mean?" I asked. "What did we do?" Before anyone could answer, the chronicle in my hands trembled once, and a single line wrote itself on the cover. "The archive is coming." I swallowed. "Coming here?" The old woman nodded. It must repair the damage. The teenager muttered, "Oh, this is bad." The soldier lifted his rifle, half material, half memory. "We hold the line." The man in the suit cracked his knuckles. "We buy time." The child whispered, "You need to write again." I stared at the witnesses, my allies now. My team. My rebellion. I looked at the chronicle. I took a deep breath. The air in my living room thickened, darkened, and then stilled. A pressure fell over everything, subtle at first, like the room taking a breath, then stronger, pressing down on the walls, the floor, the air itself. The witnesses all reacted at once. The soldier lifted his half-reel rifle. The old woman steadied herself on her cane. The teenager cursed under her breath. The man in the suit loosened his tie like he was preparing for trial, and the child's stitched rabbit twitched with a flutter of turning pages. "It's here," the first woman whispered. A flicker of words appeared in the center of the room. They spun in a small spiral, like a sentence caught in a cyclone. "The archive comes." A second sentence twisted around it. "Repair initiated." Then a third. "Replace the fault." Replace. I swallowed, throat tight. "They don't mean replace the book, right?" I asked. "Like they don't literally replace the story." "No," the old woman said gently. "They mean replace you." "Oh good," I said, "so no pressure whatsoever." Then the room tore open. Not the walls, reality. A vertical slice of the world peeled back like a curtain, revealing what lay behind the fabric of my dimension. Not darkness, not void. A vast, swirling vortex of pages, millions of them, pouring past each other in a storm of text and ink. A funnel of infinite stories collapsing toward a single point of gravity. The archive. The core knot hovered at its center, its spiraling mass of words and eyes fixed on one thing. Me. The witnesses moved instantly, forming a circle around me. The teenager's shadow stretched outward into tendrils. The soldier flickered through positions like a glitching video game character, never staying in one place long enough to be predictable. The man in the suit pulled something from his pocket, a pocket watch that glowed with shifting numerals, and snapped it open. "We hold it off," he said, "as long as we can." The old woman planted her cane, and runic symbols blazed across the floor. The child stepped behind me, small hand gripping my jacket. "You write now," they whispered. The chronicle shook in my hands, heating until the cover throbbed like a second pulse. The blank page opened. "What do I write?" I shouted over the whirl of the dimensional storm. "Tell me what to write." The first woman didn't answer. She simply met my eyes. "You know." The archives knot surged forward, slamming into the witnesses' barrier. The room thundered as if someone dropped a cathedral onto my house. The witnesses staggered but didn't break. Ink poured through the crack in reality, slithering along the walls like living vines. "Return the branch, eliminate contradiction, remove error source." The sentences scrolled around me like execution orders. I pressed pen to page. "Okay," I whispered, "if I'm really rewriting the ending." The floor shook as the archive pushed harder. "Then I choose one." The pen moved. Ink flowed. Words emerged, not forced this time, not desperate, not panicked. "Mine." The archive came to fix the story. But the story didn't need fixing. A ripple of force pushed outward from the chronicle. The room brightened. The dimensional tear shivered. The archive recoiled slightly. The story wasn't broken. It was evolving. The soldier braced himself as a wave of ink slammed into him, flickering him like a damaged hologram. The old woman planted her cane, and a shockwave of symbols burst outward, shielding the circle. The teenager snarled as shadows crawled up her arms, pushing back against tendrils of text trying to bind her. "Keep writing," she yelled. I did. The archive feared uncertainty. But uncertainty, is the birthplace of every story worth telling. The spiral knot writhed, sentences flaring red, clashing violently. Unstable branch revoke authorship, cease narrative. The witnesses held on barely. The child clutched my hand, their stitched rabbit trembling. Finish it, they whispered, end the archive's ending. I took a deep breath. The pen felt alive. So did the chronicle. And behind me, so did I. For the first time in this nightmare, I didn't feel like a victim or a pawn or a vessel. I felt like a writer. The archive demanded endings, but the witness chose beginnings. The vortex shuddered violently. Pages tore loose from the storm, spiraling away into nothingness. The knot screamed, without sound, without breath, with pure textual fury. Unacceptable, rewrite, override. But no override could erase what was written in defiance. No edit could contain a story that refused to close. The chronicle glowed blinding white. The witnesses gasped as strength flooded them, not from me but through me, from the story itself. The first woman shouted, "Now finish it." The archive surged fully into the room, its storm of pages expanding like a collapsing star. I wrote the final lines. My hand steady, my voice steady, my heartbeat steady. The archive could end many stories, but not this one. This story ended something else. The pen moved, slowly, deliberately. It ended control. The room exploded with light. The tear snapped shut. The archive's knot cracked like an egg, then shattered. The storm of pages reversed, collapsing inward, folding into itself like a burning constellation. A shockwave rippled outward, not destructive but liberating. The witnesses cried out as ink peeled away from them. The soldiers' glitch stabilized. The teenagers' shadows softened. The old woman's cane glowed with soft white light. The man in the suit straightened, his eyes clear for the first time. The child smiled. My house fell silent, truly silent. The chronicle cooled in my hands. When I opened it, the last page read, "The archive is broken, not destroyed, but freed from its own ending." I let out a long, shaking breath. The first woman approached me slowly. "You did it." I shook my head. "No, we did." The witnesses stood around me in a circle, tired, relieved, real. The first woman nodded. "The story is open now. It can breathe." "What happens next?" I asked. The witnesses exchanged glances. The man in the suit smiled faintly. "Whatever you write." The child tugged my sleeve, but not alone. The old woman added softly, "Stories are never written alone." I looked at the chronicle, not as a curse, not as a prison, not even as a battle I'd survived, but as a blank page waiting. "All right," I said, "then let's begin." The chronicle glowed faintly. A single line appeared at the bottom of the page. "The end of the archive is the beginning of the story." And for once, I believed it. The end. Then let's finish this story.